Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and we're back again with another Spirit Island video. Adversaries are the primary way that Spirit Island increases its difficulty and creates variety. However, there are other methods officially recommended in the rules. All the content you're going to find online is focused solely on playing the game with the balanced boards, and for years that's all I ever did myself. I always completely ignored the back sides of those island boards, but recently I ran a campaign to really explore and get to know them. In case you haven't seen the thematic boards before, here's how they look. The balanced boards all have 8 lands with 2 of each terrain, but the thematic boards do not follow this rule. I'll get more in depth with my next video, but some things to note right off the bat is how each of these boards has either 9 or 10 lands instead of the usual 8. And the distribution of the terrains is different from one to the next, and they're designed to be put together in one specific way to represent a real ecosystem. On this digital version, we don't have the ability to make a 6 board game yet, but there's going to be one big mountain here and a second big mountain here, picking up the tops of both of these. In addition, there's a river right here on E that flows down. Unlike the balanced boards, the thematic boards do have one specified layout, and you do it that way every time. One of the biggest complaints about the physical thematic boards is their poor legibility. Thankfully, with the digital version, a cool feature is that we can recolor the boards to match the color scheme of the balanced boards, which we're all used to, which you can see that I've already done here. So if you wanted to do that change yourself, you can go to Menu, Options, and then you can, right here is the alternate thematic style. So if we were to uncheck that, okay, we go to as is printed physically. But by having that checked off, we can now see it using the same colors and designs as the balance board. So like I said, I ran a campaign recently on the thematic boards with 6 players. For this campaign, we played against all 8 adversaries, and there were some restrictions on how we could pick the spirits. So with 8 games at 6 players, there are 48 spirit picks to be made. Currently, there are 37 spirits, of which 15 have at least one aspect. So for this campaign, the rule was that all spirits must be picked at least once, and then 11 spirits must be played a second time with an aspect. So this restriction made the campaign much more interesting, since you cannot spam the most broken spirits and combos and just smash through every adversary. Also, unpopular and underpowered spirits cannot hide. So at the beginning of the campaign, before even setting up the first game, a lot of time was spent trying to figure out how we could set up as many strong team compositions as possible, catered for each adversary. We didn't over-engineer it, but after a couple days we got into our first game against Sweden 6. Starting in the northwest, we have a small emu on Trickster. Northeast has Dancia on Haven River. West has Baubles on Sparking Lightning. East has Flo on Bass Thunderspeaker. Southwest has me on Unconstrained Fangs, and Southeast has Richie on Devouring Teeth. Coming in, none of us had much experience playing on the thematic boards, so we started with Sweden, the simplest and easiest of all the adversaries. Haven River is the one pick I would say was particularly ambitious, since Defend is just much less effective against Sweden. That being said, pulling majors is awesome, and Indomitable Claim was a particularly nice one to gain. There was no particular special combo that we went for here. In fact, there's a significant amount of parallel play. Trickster, Thunderspeaker, and Fangs all have no support powers in their base kit, so it was a fairly heads-down game. In the fast phase of turn 6, we pulled off a Terror Level 2 victory. Next, we played against Russia. I played Whirlwind in the northwest, Flo played Nourishing Earth in the northeast, Dancia played Base Lure in the west, Baubles played Earthquake in the east, Emu played Many Minds in the southwest, and Richie played Wounded Waters in the southeast. For this game, we wanted to go for the low fear approach delaying the fear bombs as long as possible while we scale up with the intention of closing out the game extremely quickly without the use of fear later. Wounded Waters went for the double water build, allowing him to downgrade explorers, which removes them without producing fear. Turn 1, Nourishing Earth gained Gift of Power, and on turn 2, Wounded Waters gained Unrelenting Growth. So this game was much sillier than the first. Since we were stalling out the game so effectively, Dances Up Earthquakes was able to do their thing without too much pressure. Across the first 4 turns, we only resolved 2 fear cards, so we didn't get our first fear bomb until after the big earthquake explosion. On turn 5, everyone went hard with their cards, trying to end the game ASAP. Years of Little Rain was a very timely event with the Beast's attack portion, and we went from resolving 2 fear cards in the first 4 turns to resolving 4 Terror Level 2 cards all in one shot. I did make a small rules error here, but my mistake did make it funnier. One of those Terror Level 2 cards was my personal favorite one, Immigration Slows. At the time of resolution, there was the standard build card and also the Russia bomb in the build slot. I resolved the fear card by skipping the entire build phase, but as it turns out, I should only have skipped one of those cards and resolved the other. It would not have made a difference for us winning or not since we were so far ahead, but there would have been another half dozen or so buildings across the island. We won in the next fast phase on turn 6. The mistake did cause this hilarious invader board, so on balance, I'd say it was worth it. 6 turns is a slightly quicker game than average, but because of the early unrelenting growth, everyone except Earthquake was just 1 turn away from fully clearing their tracks. Next, we played against Scotland. Emu played Behemoth in the northwest, I played Rising Heat in the northeast, Baubles played Encircle Fangs in the west, and Dancia played Mentor Memory in the east. Flo played Finder in the southwest, and Richie played Breath of Darkness in the southeast. The original plan for this setup was for Rising Heat to be the tank, so I took the board with the extra coastal land, expecting to take on the escalations. Finder and Breath were set up next to each other, planning on quickly emptying out their inland and making a huge pocket so we could snowball the game. Breath was going to dump all of their invaders into the middle of our 3 attacking spirits so we could have a good old brawling time up north. Well, that was the plan, and that plan was abandoned almost immediately. The way things shook out, Finder became the tank, eating all the escalations, and suddenly he had to focus on keeping all the plates spinning and avoid drowning under all that plastic. It's popular to play Finder in a way where you make a huge pile of invaders on someone else's board, but Traveler's Boon is a great card which I think is often underutilized. To keep himself alive, Finder made a massive stack on their own coastal land, and then used Traveler's Boon to bring 2 of Heat's presence into that stack, accomplishing the setup we aspired for from the start, but just in a different location than where it was previously imagined. The big stack went poof on turn 5, but Scotland never says die. This game was the longest of our whole campaign, ending on turn 8 in the fast phase, and everyone got to scale up and throw down huge thresholded measures to cover everyone else's weak spots. For example, when Heat invested time and resources into cleaning up the Finder dump land, Memory went north and swept a dozen pieces from Heat's board into the sea. I love all that crossboard play, so this game was amazing. For the 4th game, we took on Prussia. Flo played Darkfire Shadows in the northwest, Baubles played Travel River in the northeast, Emu played Base Serpent in the west, Richie played Downpour in the east, Dancia played Base Ocean in the southwest, and I played Violence Bringer in the southeast. Going into this game, we were starting to get quite comfortable with the unique challenges that come with the thematic boards. Going from one balance board to another does make some differences, but I feel like more often than not the changes are so small, strategic implications are wildly overblown. The thematic boards are a much bigger deviation from the norm, so I was really unsure how extremely restricted spirits such as Ocean would perform. Per the rules of the campaign, we couldn't avoid playing Ocean forever though. Just by being in the game, Ocean warps how all other spirits must play. And Prussia hit so fast, this was the first game that we went into kind of nervous that the game could spiral out of control and not in our favor. We chose Darkfire Shadows, Violence Bringer, and Base Ocean with the intention of pushing the Fear deck aggressively while keeping the game short. Base Serpent, Downpour, and Travel River are all spirits that can cover a disproportionate amount of geography and provide defense, so preventing YOLO spirits from YOLOing a bit too much and blighting out. Prussia is an adversary where you can be really saved or screwed over by the Invader deck, and this time the game smiled in our favor. The Southwest board, where Ocean started, has 4 inland jungles, but jungles happened to be removed from the Stage 2 deck, so we had plenty of time for everyone to get established before Ocean was being pressured. In addition, when the coastal card is removed, Ocean really has a bad time scraping for resources, so it is quite fortunate to have that come up on turn 3, giving Ocean tons of food. They even gained bargains of power and protection, so they were able to influence a little bit more inland as well. This game ended in the fast phase of turn 7 with a Terror level 3 victory. At this point, we're halfway through, and we have many spirits completely eliminated from being available in the back half. River and Fangs have been played twice, and 11 spirits with no aspects have also been played. Going into the back half, we have France. Flo played Transforming Wildfire in the northwest. I played Volcano in the northeast. Dancha ran it back with the other ocean in the west. Baubles played Pandemonium Lightning in the east. Richie played Wandering Voice in the southwest. And Emu played Tangles Green in the southeast. Because of all the extra lands, we were very concerned that we could lose to the town count restriction. Generally against France, the key is to survive through the slave rebellions. The first one will put you in a healthy position in the town count before the escalations start adding up, and the second one will win you the game. Two Strife Spirits really lean into that slaves rebellion strategy. This game had a funny moment which really exemplified a unique benefit of the thematic boards. France has a strong tendency to cause the island to go blighted because it neuters the effectiveness of blight removal. Unfortunately, our Blighted Island card was Slow Dissolution of Will, which is particularly dangerous for the spirits we selected. Ocean and Lightning are both naturally slow to add presence to the board. Voice fell back into a reclaim loop despite not opening with that intention. Volcano and Green like to sacrifice their own presence, and Wildfire really hates to sacrifice presence because growing back into the abandoned lands is especially punishing with the blight cascades. This pressure on our presence had us scrambling to find a card to bring our presence back, and on turn 6 we were staring down a mountain ravage that would have caused us to blight out. Just in the nick of time, Green pulled Solidify Echoes of Majesty Past. If we were playing on any balanced board setup, Volcano would be a terrible target for this card, since their presence cannot be added to non-mountain terrains. But the large group of adjacent mountains flips that assumption on its head. That card brought back 5 presence and saved the game. Going a bit deeper down the right innate, Volcano has the ability to bring all this scattered presence together and rebuild a new Volcano stack. In a normal game, the intention is for you to move your Volcano across the board for another big explosion, but the thematic boards opens up a whole new way to use the same powers. Solidify would be a great card to stave off a destroyed presence loss condition, but we won the following fast phase on turn 7 at Terror level 3 before we even saw the second Slaves Rebellion. Next is Habsburg Livestock, where we have Emu playing Stone in the northwest, Flo with Enticing Bringer in the northeast, Richie playing Relentless Gaze in the west, Dancha on Roots in the east, Baubles on Fractured Days in the southwest, and I played Stranded Shroud in the southeast. Bringer and Fractured Days is a wonderful, underrated combo that was featured on this channel a while ago. The free element for Fractured Days makes hitting that OP innate so much easier. And then in the late game, using tons of slips on Bringer can repeat a huge fear bomb over and over until suddenly the whole fear deck flips over in one phase. Shroud is a spirit I particularly enjoy into the Habsburg matchup, using the free isolate to use Habsburg 1 Town Gather against itself by quickly making pockets, denying explorers as early as turn 1. Stone, Gaze, and Roots are all spirits that do really well with tons of invaders in few lands, making them excellent choices here. On turn 4, Stone picked up the bargains of Coursing Path, which was absolutely amazing. That takes our primary game plan and makes it so much smoother. So here's how the invader board going into turn 6. We're still in Terror level 1. You would think that things are not looking good for us. But the thing is, the Fractured Bringer combo is just silly. Bringer receives slope 4 times in a row, playing a thresholded sweep into the sea over and over and over again. And because all these invaders were piled up, we got 330 fast fear, ending the game in just the snap of a finger. After that, we went against Habsburg Mining Expedition. By this point, our choices were incredibly restricted, and we really have to start playing spirits we would have hoped to avoid. Baubles played Spreading Hostility Keeper in the northwest. Emu played Warrior Thunderspeaker in the northeast. Flo played Eyes in the west. Richie played Vengeance in the east. I played Starlight in the southwest. And Dancia played Hearth Vigil in the southeast. Since other adversaries identify specific lands to add buildings to as a part of setup, the extra lands on the thematic boards don't matter. But HME2 says to add an explorer to every land without Dahan, so that scales with the extra lands here. This made a huge difference, especially in those lands where you start with free wilds. Against many adversaries, including HME, that wilds can single-handedly stop a whole chain of invader actions by itself. But now with that starting explorer, we don't get free value. Another important difference with thematic versus balanced boards is there's often more than 2 lands of each terrain on the thematic board. HME 6 specifically says that only 2 explored lands per board get the extra explorer. On the balanced boards, this is irrelevant until stage 3, by which point you're usually past the blight threshold and HME 6 turns off. Because of that, I've always felt like the max 2 restriction was unnecessary and should be removed. Maybe they were thinking about us thematic players all along. HME has always been the adversary giving the most agency to the players with that mining boom, but being able to also manipulate the explorers made for a really smooth experience. While we did have 2 underpowered spirits in the north with Spreading Hostility Keeper and Warrior Thunderspeaker, the other 4 spirits absolutely obliterate HME typically. HME is an adversary that really pushes you towards a blighted island, and we had the wonderful misfortune of pulling All Things Weaken, arguably the most game-warping blight card ever printed. If you pay attention to the northwest boards as we're flicking through these turns, you'll see Keeper has a really rough time, basically never escaping that accidental prison of Northwest 4. In my opinion, this was the hardest game of the whole campaign. We had no particularly exciting combo to play around, we got a brutal Blighted Island card, and everyone was staring down the Presence Lost condition. Thunderspeaker played incredibly well though, and was able to spread their influence all across the island. By the end, Northeast was only being protected by a prayer, but offense is the best defense, and we were able to pull off a turn 7 fast victory at Terror level 3. Last but not least, we had England. Dancia played Might Earth in the northwest, I played Regrowth Green in the northeast, Flo played Locust Serpent in the west, Emu played Intensify Memory in the east, Richie played Base Keeper in the southwest, and Baubles played Fathomless Mud in the southeast. If HME put fear in our heart, threatening a loss during the campaign, then that was all alleviated with this last team composition. There's just so much broken stuff going on here. For example, on turn 1, we had Might Earth give a free repeat to Green, who was playing Gift of Proliferation, so we gave out a double proliferation on turn 1. On turn 5, Keeper gains Cast Down into the briny deep, and we knew we had to end the campaign in style. Conveniently, all but 2 boards were largely solved by this point, so we combined all of our support to threshold Cast Down and get it repeated by Locust, destroying both the west and northwest boards, and this gave us a turn 6 slow victory. Destroying the island itself in the last act of a campaign is a very thematic way to go. I feel like it would not make any sense if games 1 through 7 had a chunk of the island removed, though I think you could make an argument about Deep's Ocean. But the double Cast Down to close it out is the Spirit Island version of the badass hero walking away from the explosion without flinching, looking back, or nothing. I didn't realize this until putting together this video, but every game besides the England one was a fast-phased victory. I'm not one for collecting such granular data, but I do wonder what the breakdown is of victory timings across all kinds of games. So there were 15 spirits with aspects, but by the structure of the campaign, only 11 spirits would have to be played twice. The 4 that were left out in the 2-timer club were Shadows, Wildfire, Lure, and Shroud. I had an absolute blast with this campaign, and I can't thank everyone enough who participated and stayed active through the whole journey. From beginning to end, the campaign ran for 5 months and 2 days, averaging 19 days per game. That's a very aggressive schedule for a very long time, so everyone had to be very involved, and that made for a wonderful experience. So that was a little rundown of what's been keeping me busy recently. I'll be back next time to talk more about the thematic boards, some stuff I learned from them, and some strategic insights that we could derive. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a glorious day.